Well, hello and welcome to another Switzer update. And the big story this morning is that it looks like China is actually starting to import Australian coal. And the official ban on coal now looks to be unofficially over. The Global Times, which is regarded as a newspaper that speaks for Beijing, says a Chinese steel firm has resumed to purchase Australian coal products, with the first shipment of about 72,000 tonnes of coking coal expected to arrive in South China on February 8. Now, the improvement in bilateral ties has really, in a sense, been a really big help for this particular industry and lots of other industries. For example, those selling lobsters to China and wine will be keeping their fingers crossed that this thawing of the freezing relationships between Beijing and Canberra will help them as well. Now, what's interesting is that it's fair to say that Penny Wong, Albo and the Oz economy are beneficiaries of this development. Penny Wong has done a pretty good job, I think. Albo's had a bit of bad news lately as a Prime Minister, but this is a good development for him, at least on the economic front. It might not be good for his credentials with the green fraternity out there, but certainly coal is still an important export. And the point I want to make here is this, that our economy has a few challenges ahead, with 800,000 borrowers expected to roll off their fixed home loans onto variable from about July this year. Now, that's going to take away a lot of spending power and demand, which could actually push us close to a recession. So if the coal industry and other exporters can actually do better as a consequence of this thawing of the Chinese relationship between Beijing and Canberra, it could be another little plus to prevent us going into recession, which ultimately is good for jobs. And even though coal is going to be replaced over time progressively for energy, there's no real substitute for coal when it comes to making steel, and steel is critically important for all modern development. And also we should say this, coal is important because it's a $55 billion a year export industry. It employs about 40,000 people and really is important for lots of rural communities. So they need replacements if coal is going to be kicked out over time as a vital resource and a vital export. Now, let's go and have a look at what happened to the markets overnight. Another positive one for the US, even though the Dow was down 39 points. Have a look at the other markets. S&P 500 up 1.47%. The NASDAQ, tech-heavy NASDAQ, up 3.25%. Now, this is telling us that tech companies are being re-loved, as the Federal Reserve is kind of implying that they're close to the top. They might keep on raising rates for a couple more months or so, but the market's believing it's close to the top. Inflation's on the way down. The big star was Meta, which of course is the new name or the owner of Facebook and other businesses. It was up 23% in one day after reporting better than expected. It's the best day since 2013 for the company, and fourth quarter earnings beat on revenue. And announcing a $40 billion stock buyback also helped. But other mega cap tech stocks did really well. And that's going to be good for tech stocks here in Australia. Shares of Google parent Alphabet were up 7.3%. Amazon jumped 7.4%. And Apple shares gained 3.7%. This is something most of you know I've been alluding to, that once inflation looks as though it's on the way down and interest rates are no longer going to rise as aggressively as was once thought, tech stocks will start being bought by the smarties in the markets. So I think this is an important development. I'm not saying that sell-offs aren't going to come in along the way, but I think we're seeing a real piece of proof that over 2023, stocks are likely to have a pretty good year, particularly when you consider bashed up tech stocks are now being re-loved, and that's going to be good for the S&P 500, where the tech stocks are really big performers in that index, and if the S&P 500 goes up, the ASX 200 is likely to go up as well. So this has been a good week for the outlook on stocks. Keep my fingers crossed that it keeps going that way. That's my update for today. I'll see you on Monday.